Let's move on now. Iran is holding its annual Air Force drill. The exercise is significant this time as it comes in the backdrop of U.S. fighter planes flying into the region to deter Iran from seizing U.S. commercial vessels in the Persian Gulf area. 11 Iranian Air Force bases are participating in the Air Force drill that got underway on Sunday. Reports say more than 90 Iranian fighter planes, bombers and drones will be used. An air base at the southern port of Bandar Abbas at the mouth of the strategic Strait of Hormuz is active in the drill. This Strait of Hormuz is the narrow mouth of the Persian Gulf through which 20% of all crude oil passes. Iran has been holding such drills in the past. Reports suggest these drills are designed to assess the force's combat readiness and demonstrate the nation's military capabilities. The Iran's military Joint Chief of Staff said the country's Air Force protects airspace over the 3 islands controlled by Iran and claimed by the United Arab Emirates.
با توانمندی بومی و آموزش‌های کیفی و مهارت‌های عالی که داره و با جانفشانی و حرکت جهادی خود امنیت بسیار قابل قبول و مناسبی رو برای فضای کشور تأمین کرده و از جمله در تنگه هرمز، فراز جزایر سگانه قهرمان تنب بزرگ، تنب کوچک و بوموسا امنیت فضای کشور رو تأمین کرده و هیچ دشمنی، هیچ قدرت.
Meanwhile, the U.S. Navy says Iran has seized at least 5 commercial vessels in the last 2 years. Tensions have steadily risen since the administration of former U.S. President Donald Trump unilaterally withdrew from Iran's 2015 nuclear agreement with world powers and restored crippling sanctions. Iran has responded by ramping up its nuclear activities, which it says are purely peaceful, and provided drones to Russia for its war against Ukraine.
According to a report by the Associated Press, August 1st, 2023, thousands of Marines backed by U.S. advanced fighter jets and warships are slowly building up a presence in the Persian Gulf. It's a sign that while America's wars in the region may be finished, its conflict with Iran over its advancing nuclear program continues to worsen, with no solutions in sight. The dispatch of the troop and aircraft carrying USS Bataan to the Gulf, alongside stealth F-35 fighters and other warplanes, comes as America wants to focus on China and Russia. But Washington is seeing once again that while it's easy to get into the Middle East militarily, it's difficult to ever fully get out, particularly as Iran now enriches uranium closer than ever to weapons-grade levels after the collapse of the 2015 nuclear deal with world powers. There is no sign that diplomacy will revive the deal soon, and Iran in recent weeks has resumed harassing and seizing ships trying to pass through the Straits of Hormuz. Some 20% of the world's oil passes through the narrow connecting the Persian Gulf to the wider world. And that's the updated report from Associated Press. And now my thoughts. Look, the Associated Press reported that on August 1st. Now, a month ago, using the same source, the Associated Press, they wrote that a U.S. intelligence assessment claims that Iran is not pursuing nuclear weapons, but has ramped up activities that could help it develop them. So, this is coming from the Office of the Director of the National Intelligence, which released an assessment stating that Iran has moved to increase its capacity to produce an atomic bomb, but hasn't stopped short of going that far. So they're not anywhere near. Now, of course, you have the International Atomic Agency and the Biden administration, which has been defending the fact it wants to return to the 2015 nuclear deal with Iran, which is also known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or the JCPOA. But there's another problem, and this is my main concern. We are being pressured by a couple of institutions here. One is the War Department. The Pentagon and the military-industrial complex see war as a profit margin. What I mean by that is that the conflict in Ukraine is going rather well at the time, but there's a bigger necessity for producing missiles, tomahawks, and other sorts of aerial bombardments, jets, if there was an even bigger conflict. And Iran would be an enormous one. It would make the Iran conflict of 1990 and 2003 seem minuscule. Iran has a very capable military. Geographically, it's not an advantage for the United States either when it comes to ground troops. This would most likely be a sea and air war. Navy and Air Force. Now, the other issues come from foreign lobbies. Israel, the main antagonist in this conflict that goes back 40 years, and Saudi Arabia. Now, Iran, of course, is watching the potential moves of normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia. The country that produced Wahhabi Islam, which considers Israel, the Yahud in Arabic, the arch enemy, as well as the apostates, or the munafiq, which is Arabic for fake Muslim, is now going to normalize relations with its arch enemy. Israel only sees Saudi Arabia as the enemy is the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And I think Saudi Arabia knows that. However, they both have an arch rival, Iran, for two different reasons. Israel sees Iran as the biggest threat to its existence, even though Iran is of no threat to Israel. Secondly, Saudi Arabia sees Iran as the main enemy here due to religious reasons. Saudi Arabia is home to Sunni Islam, most notably Wahhabism, which is anti-ethical to Sunni Islam because Sunnis around the world consider Saudi Arabia heretical. Yet Saudi Arabia wants to be the apex of Islam in the Middle East and all around the world. Iran is Shia, the minority of Islam. They're the biggest Shia country on the face of the earth. They've been arch enemies that goes back centuries. So now, when you have two foreign lobbies and the War Department pressuring the State Department to engage in a conflict that would cost lives and most likely many billions of dollars, maybe in the hundreds of billions. Afghanistan was 20 years and it cost us $3 trillion. I doubt Iran is going to last more than 5. They could, because they have a capable military. This would be a sheer and complete disaster. Now, Iran's Fars news agency reported that the Iranian foreign minister, Hossein Amir Abdullahi, had met with his Syrian counterparts and has slammed Israel's actions in Syria. And if you haven't been keeping up, go to Antiwar.com, go to the conflicts of interest headed by Kyle Anzalone, or go to Dave DeCamp, who's been reporting on this almost daily regarding the conflicts in Syria and how Israel has been bombarding Damascus with drone strikes and missile strikes. And who are they eliminating? They're not eliminating the Islamic State or the Al-Qaeda affiliates like al-Nusra, or whatever name they go by these days. They change every 3 months. No, they're going after the Quds force. They're going after the Shia militia who are fighting the people that we were supposed to fight in the war on terrorism. the ones that actually do engage in international terrorism? No. So what happens here is that you have Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the War Department now propagating false and misleading information, stating that Iran is the largest exporter of terrorism around the world because they don't respect you. They think you're stupid. They think you're ignorant. 10 years ago, the media called Saudi Arabia the largest exporter of terrorism in the world. Now, because of the influences of Israel and Saudi Arabia, the Gulf, and of course the Pentagon, they have their own media committees. They have their own interests in the United States. And this is the reason why the Democratic and Republican parties are but one when it comes to issues like this, because they don't fight each other against the interests that they get so handsomely paid from. So you, the people, me and you, are going to have to speak out and condemn the U.S. government for entertaining this proposition, which is going to be disastrous for the Iranian people and for us. It's not disastrous for Israel. It's not disastrous for Saudi Arabia. It's sure as hell not disastrous for the Pentagon and the military-industrial complex. The money is coming from the coffers of government, the Federal Reserve, the World Banks, fossil fuel industry, taxes, while Saudi Arabia and Israel continues to spend money to influence members of our government who won't listen to us unless we have an extremely loud and large populace. And we better have to do something because we're heading at the precipice of a new Cold War. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. Sounds familiar? It does. That's exactly what we were up against in the 60s and 70s. Until the Cold War was replaced with the war on terrorism. Usually these conflicts last every 10 to 12 years. To find out who our enemies are tomorrow, see who we're funding today. We're giving weapons to right-wing nationalists in Ukraine. Taliban, we left billions of dollars in weapons. And one day, these radical fundamentalists will be our enemy once again, because it's about repetition. That's all history is. One very looping and depressing repetition of history that has no end until we finally put a stop to it.